Hi, folks. Hope all of you are doing great and staying safe. Can you hear me? Can someone ping me on the chat if you can hear me well? Okay, great. Thanks. Yeah, today we are going to talk about controlling access to your microservices with Istio Service Mesh. So this is our second meetup. We started this IAM for developers meetup group across 5 regions. And so every week we try to cover a topic. Last week, the first meetup, we talked about JWT. And next meetup, next week, we plan to talk about OO2O internals and applications. A couple of housekeeping items before we start. All of you are muted now, and if you have any questions, you can either use Zoom chat or else unmute yourself and speak up. So I'm Prabhas Sirivadana from WSO2. I've been with the company for almost 13 years now, and mostly working on leading the WSO2 identity server. So if you are new to WSO2, WSO2 is a company which produces a set of open source products. In addition to the identity server, we also have an API manager and also an enterprise integrator. Okay. Yeah. So in this session, we expect or we assume that you have some good understanding about Kubernetes and some working knowledge with Istio. So we won't cover the basics in those areas. And also we have divided this session into two. First, I'll go through a set of patterns. And then, so we'll cover patterns in like platform agnostic manner. Then we'll move into like how to implement those patterns with Istio Service Mesh with a set of services deployed on Kubernetes. So that's the plan. And any point, if you have any questions, please feel free to raise. Okay, so this is what we see as a common pattern in a typical microservices deployment. In terms of security, we worry about two areas, so two policy enforcement points. One is enforcing policies at the edge, and the other one is enforcing policies between services. So to enforce policies for the service-to-service communications or the east-west traffic, and enforce security for at the edge for north-south traffic. So to doing that, we use an API gateway. So all your upstream microservices will be exposed to the rest of the world to an API gateway. And you will do that selectively. You don't need to export all your microservices. You can pick whatever the microservices you want to have external access and expose that to the gateway. And the gateway will act as a central PEP or a policy enforcement point. It will intercept all the traffic coming to your microservice deployment, and we will enforce security, do throttling, and we'll do access control, those checks. Then again, like who are the audiences of an API or an API gateway? So it will be mostly a system. So system is a direct audience. Then again, a system can access an API just by being itself or on behalf of an end user. Right? So the pattern would be like, so you will have multiple applications. The end users can log into these applications with a trusted identity provider, either using OpenID Connect or any single sign-on identity federation standard. So once you log into the application, so API gateway doesn't need to worry about like how users get authenticated to the applications. Once users are authenticated to the applications can use the access token that you got from the IDP to invoke an API via the API gateway. Then the API gateway will intercept that, and it will talk to the IDP or the token issuer to validate the token. Then again, how the gateway does validation depends on the type of the token. An access token can be a reference token or else a self-contained token. If it's reference token, it's just opaque. It doesn't carry any information. The gateway has to talk to the token issuer all the time, intercept the token and see whether the token is valid. And if it's self-contained token, it's mostly JWT. So we talked about JWT last week's meetup. You can validate it if you trust the issuer of the JWT by yourself without having a direct communication channel to the issuer. Either way, once you validate that, the gateway will send the user context and not the application context to the upstream microservice. In most of the cases, a given gateway will trust a single secure token service and an IDP, but that doesn't mean that you cannot onboard multiple other IDPs in the system. So these are the IDPs that users will be using to authenticate. Even though you have multiple IDPs, the trust relationship between your domain and those external IDPs will be handled by the secure token service. But your gateway only trusts the STS, and also all the upstream microservices, they will only trust that particular STS. So that's the high level architecture we see in the gateway pattern that we enforce at the edge. And OAuth2 has become the de facto standard in securing this microservice at the edge. Okay, so in terms of service-to-service security, we see multiple patterns, and different people do this stuff in multiple phases. So we've been talking about microservices for a long time now, but only last few years you've seen real production grade, large scale microservice deployment. Still, if you are new to microservices deployment, what you first worry about is getting your functional requirements done. So you don't pay that much of attention to security. What you do is you need to get the security done to some level. So most people start with this pattern to secure service communication. So you have the gateway. So the gateway will terminate the connection coming from the edge, coming from the applications, and authenticate the request. After that, you dispatch the message to the upstream microservices. They will simply trust the network. They won't worry about the legitimacy of the message. They simply trust the gateway and the network, right? So this pattern has many issues, but this is the easiest way for people to get started. Then again, if you ask whether we recommend this pattern, no. So this is not a recommended pattern. As we move on, you can see now people are moving for this zero trust network pattern. So with zero trust network pattern, as the name implies, you simply don't trust the network. So if you don't trust the network, what you can do is you need to enforce policies or do the security checks as much as closer to your resource, in this case, microservice. So that's where we see the service mesh pattern comes into play. Okay. Here you may use TLS between workloads or between workloads and the gateway. Okay, so this is a slight improved version of the previous pattern. So instead of just having TLS and trusting the network, you will also authenticate workloads and also the gateway using mutual TLS. So this is a better approach, but still this has some issues. So one issue is, even in this case, like in the previous one, the way the gateway passes the user context from the gateway to upstream microservice is through an HTTP header. So this HTTP is not, a header is not integrally protected. So that means if the first microservice which gets this header will use that header internally. And if this microservice, the first microservice, wants to talk to another microservice, an upstream microservice, they will simply pass the same header it got from the gateway. But there's no guarantee that header information being altered by the first microservice, and there is no way to validate that at the second microservice. So there's an issue with the integrity protection of the header information or the user context and the application context, which is being passed from the gateway to the upstream microservices. Okay, this is another improved version. So this basically solves the integrity issue related to the user context. So what happens is, instead of just passing HTTP header, the gateway, with the help of the connected secure token service, will embed the user context and the application context into a JWT or a job. Right? It's a signed token. So that means if someone changes a token, the information in the token, the recipient can detect it. So, so you have MPLS to authenticate workloads, and then you pass the user context and the application context among microservices using JWT. Right? But still, this has an issue. The issue is the JWT is shared. Right? So you get the JWT to the first microservice, and you send the same JWT to the other upstream microservice when the first microservice wants to talk to the second microservice. So what's the risk here? So JWT you can think about JWT as a capability token. So that means a capability token itself carries a set of privileges. So that means you have this token, you can use this token to do certain actions, right? So since this JWT is being shared by all the microservices, that means all the microservices inherit, like each microservice inherits the same set of privileges, right? There's no way to differentiate that. And also, if you look at JWT, JWT has an audience element. So audience means the recipient, the legitimate recipient of this particular microservice. In this case, since your intention is to share the JWT across all your microservices, you need to have audience, a single audience value that is accepted by all the microservices in the deployment. So this is another improved version to fix that problem. So you get the JWT, the first microservice gets a JWT from the gateway, which is signed by the secure token service. Then if the first microservice wants to talk to the second microservice, it won't simply pass the JWT as it is, but it got from the gateway. It will simply talk to the issuer of the JWT, which is STS, and exchange that to a new JWT and pass that new JWT to the second microservice. So with this, the first JWT will have an audience value pointing to the first microservice. Then the second microservice, second JWT will have an audience value pointing to the second microservice. This is a much better improved version from what you saw before. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Now, the challenge is how you implement this, right? So you need to do MTLS validations, you need to do JWT validations at your microservice. One basic principle in any microservice design is the single responsibility principle. So a given microservice should not do anything other than what it's supposed to do, right? So you should focus on, if you build a microservice, your business value. You should not worry about doing security validations, throttling, authorization checks, anything. You should not embed that into a microservice code. Now, how do you build this? So there are two approaches. So one is, if you are familiar with Spring Boot, so Spring Boot has a handler architecture. So you don't need to write any security code, but you can simply embed those handlers to your microservice. Then those will act as interceptors, in-process interceptors, and then do the security checks. So this pattern we call as in-process service mesh, right? So the proxy is running in process with the code itself. This pattern has its own issues as well. For example, like if there's any code changes in the proxy, if there are any vulnerability in the proxy code, which is embedded into your application code, then redeploy the whole thing, right? Redeploy your code itself. Also, you have a direct coupling between the proxy and the microservice. So that means both has to be developed the same language. So there are issues in reusability. To fix that, what you can do is you can go for an out of process service mesh. So there the proxy runs outside the process of the application, right? So this is what we see in Istio service mesh. So the proxy will intercept all the requests coming to the microservice, and will do MTLS checks, and also will do JWT verification. Okay, so now what you see in blue here, light blue here, so that's the data plane. So all the runtime traffic goes through the data plane. So all the requests will come to the proxy, then proxy will do the verification, and then will dispatch the request to the corresponding microservice. So this is the data plane. And then again, to configure the data plane, you need a control plane. So control plane defines the control instructions, how your deployment should act like, and pass those information to the data plane. And those instructions will be enforced by the proxies. Okay. For example, like if you authenticate to a microservice JWT, you may need to define what are the acceptable issuers, right? So that policy can be defined in the control plane and push that to the proxy. And if you want to access control checks, once again, you can have your PDP running in the control plane and push those policies to the data plane. And also, if you want to routing, like define routing controls, For example, like when first microservice wants to talk to second microservice, and if there are multiple versions of second microservice, you can do load balancing, like do a weighted load balancing. Then how you want to do that weighted load balancing can be defined in the control plane, and the instructions can be pushed to the data plane, so you can enforce it. So there's a clear separation between the data plane and the control plane. So this we see in any service mesh implementation. Okay, so that basically concludes our first part. If you have any questions on that, we can take them now. You can unmute and speak up to, or else just type it in the Zoom chat. Okay.
One question. So the initial token which comes via the API gateway to the first microservice, right? So that token is issued in a user context, right? So somebody logged into an application and the ID authenticate. So, but the token which gets translated by the microservice, that needs to be issued from a service context, right? Not from a user context.
No, okay.
So
yeah. So if I go back here to this diagram, right? So so the API gateway first gets a token, right? It can be JWT, an access token, which is issued by an IDP. It can be this IDP, or else it can be an external, totally different IDP. Right? So then this STS will validate that, and it will issue its own JWT, own token, which also embed user information, application information, those stuff. And you pass this new JWT to this microservice. So this JWT will carry the user context. So when one microservice to another microservice, the user context will be passed to this particular JWT, and you can exchange that between calls too. The service can the identity of the service, right? That will be passed with through the MTLS connection. The user context will be passed to the JWT. The service context will be passed by the certificates in the MTLS.
okay.
Does that answer your question? Or?
Yeah. Yes, I understand, Prabhat. So when a microservice exchanges the first JWT to get its own JWT, so in that translation, what do you say, that still that user context will be maintained, right?
Yes. So I think it's yeah, user context will be maintained, and also the audience of the JWT will be the new one. So
okay.
it's more constrained. Like for example, it also gives an opportunity to the STS to enforce some access control policies, right? So the first JWT may have set of claims which is good enough, like to the first microservice, but when you exchange that, you may not share the same set of attributes in this particular JWT.
Okay, got it. So
in OAuth terminology, this JWT have one scope, the second JWT can have another scope.
okay. And what kind of flow will we use? Is it the JWT bearer token exchange, that grant type?
Yeah, so there are two ways of doing that. JWT grant type is one way, but if there's another spec called JWT token exchange. Okay. So you can use the token exchange. The token exchange one is most suited here. You have one JWT, and you can pass the new audience value, the new scope values in the request, and you can get a new JWT. So that's following the token exchange RFC.
Okay, got it. One final question from my side. So is it like every microservice? So what kind of validation is expected in this architecture? Is it? I know that claims should be checked. What about signature?
Yeah.
Also,
so any recipient of the JWT first should check whether the audience value of the JWT, the audience value should be known to the recipient microservice. Then it should validate the issuer. You need to see whether this is an issuer that I am going to accept the tokens from. Then it can validate the signature. So the signature can be validated with a public key. And how you refer key in the JWT is you can follow multiple approaches. So either way you follow, you validate the signature of the JWT with the key, and then again you also should check whether the public key that you use to validate the signature of JWT is trusted. That is something known to you, before. And then you need to validate the expiration, then issued at, then not before value, so all the other stuff.
Okay, thanks. Thank you.
Yes. So now we go to the Istio architecture. So once again, I'm not going into detail here, but I'll give you like rough idea. So this is the Istio architecture that you see today, but now the Istio architecture is heavily changing with the latest version, that is Istio 1.5 and 1.5.1 was released too. So I'll explain this architecture and then I'll briefly explain how this is going to evolve. So here you have the data plane. So in data plane, you have the ingress proxy or else the Istio ingress gateway. All the requests coming to Istio deployment will go through the ingress proxy, which is an Envoy proxy. Then you have service proxies running in each pod along with the service, right? Then you have egress proxy. If one microservice wants to talk an external endpoint, that request can go to the egress proxy. Once again, it's not a must. You can, if you want, you can bypass going through the egress proxy. So this is all these components we call data plane, right? And this is a control plane. So in the control plane, you see three main components: Pilot, Citadel, and Mixer. In addition to that, there's another component called Galley. So what Pilot does is it defines like routing information and other configurations and push that to the data plane. And Citadel takes care of provisioning certificates and rotating certificates for workloads or proxies. Then Mixer has a like pluggable architecture, so you can have authorization plugins, then monitoring plugins, those stuff. So it will do precondition checks, and also it will get telemetry data from the proxy. And using a plugin, you can push it to external system. So Mixer at the moment, Mixer is the like the extensibility of the service, Istio service mesh is built around Mixer. But moving forward with Istio 1.5 onwards, they have integrated the Pilot, Citadel, Galley into a single binary, which is called Istio-D. Right, so there will be single binary in Istio 1.5, and the responsibility of Mixer will start to dilute. So with the new architecture of Istio, it tries to build the extensibility of the service mesh around the proxy itself. Right, so you will be able to build filters for Envoy proxy with the WebAssembly. So in moving forward, whenever we want to build extensions, that will be around the proxy which will run in the data plane. So that's the high level Istio architecture. So this is, so from here onwards, I'll do like a lot of hands-on demos. So this is the scenario I'm going to deploy. So I have two microservices, order processing microservice and the inventory microservice. And I'll deploy these two along with the security token service in a Kubernetes cluster. So the use case is a user logs into the web application. So I'm not using a web app, but just a simple curl client. So somehow the curl client will authenticate to the web app using the security token service, and you will get a JWT which represent the application as well as the user to the application. So now the application will use that token to invoke the order processing microservice. You can simply do a get and find what are the like list out the orders, and also you can do a post. You can do a post to the order processing microservice, which is to create an order. Then when you receive a new order at the order processing microservice end, it will also do an HTTP put to the inventory microservice to update the inventory. Right? All these connections ultimately should be protected with JWT and MTL. Right? So we'll start from scratch. We'll start building this in step by step. Okay. Any questions related to the setup? Okay. Now, okay. So first, I need to deploy these three microservices in my Kubernetes environment. So I'm using Docker for desktop. So it's a single node Kubernetes cluster. Okay, so this is my deployment artifacts. This is the inventory microservice, so I won't go through in detail. right? And then order processing microservice, its deployment and the Kubernetes service, and also secrets and other config maps, and then STS. This is STS. So let me redeploy this. I think this stream is already deployed. Then order processing microservice and the inventory microservice. Okay, so now if I do, okay, so all the pods are up and running. And also I can have a look at the services. These are Kubernetes services, right? So here you can see order processing microservice and STS microservice, they are using node port service type, but the inventory microservice is using cluster IP. So when it is when your Kubernetes service cluster IP is available within the cluster, ideally order service and STS should be within the cluster. So it should be a cluster IP, because you will see that we are going to expose it to the Istio Ingress Gateway later. But for the time being, I made that node port service so I can invoke outside the cluster and show you how it works. So there's no security enforced now. There's no TLS enforced. There's no JWT verification enforced. So let's see how the basic setup works. First, I need to talk to the STS and get a token. So this is a normal OAuth request using password grant type. Once again, password grant type is not something recommended, but I'm just using it here. You need to pick the grant type which works for you best. Mostly it's the authorization code grant type. So I'll copy this request. And if you look at this request, this has two environment variables, host and port. So I think port host is already there. I'll add port here. So port should be the node port for the STS, this one. Now if I copy this back, and you can see the HTTP call. So this should return me back the access token, OAuth access token, which is also a JWT in this case. Right? So if you just copy this one, and if you go to JWT IO, you can decode this and see, right? So you can see the subject is Peter, audience has strict.ecom.com, and username is Peter. This is this carries the scope 2, and it has an issuer, and also these are the roles attached to this particular user. And this client ID carries the identity information with respect to the web application. Now, now I can use this token to invoke the order processing microservice. Right? So let's export this as token. Okay. Then to invoke the order processing microservice, I can use this curl command. Here also I have this port environment variable. So I need to find the node port of the order processing microservice. This one. And then I can just run this command. So I got a response back. Once again, even though we pass JWT as a header parameter, the microservice doesn't do any verification. You can double check that. Right, so if you remove the token here, or else just send the token to still works, right? Because we haven't enforced any JWT verification at the microservice end. And there's another command, like if you post a request to the order processing microservice, which is basically to put an order. So this will also work. You get a 201 response from the microservice. And you can have a look at the inventory microservice too. So we can get the logs of the microservice. So here you can do get logs, and I need to get it from the inventory container. Okay. So these are the logs. Take some time because I have enabled debug level logs here. So now if I run it again, you will see the item codes printed. So these are the item codes printed here. Now I can also have a look at this Kiali, which is a observability control observability management console, which comes with Istio, right? Just like Grafana, you can use Kiali console too. So if you look at this one, it will show the interactions. Right? So you can see unknown one is the curl client. So it directly talks to order processing microservice, directly talks to STS. Then order processing microservice talks to the inventory microservice, and you can enable security to. So now you can see we didn't do anything at the microservice side to enable TLS or mutual TLS, right? So these are plain HTTP calls, right? So here you can see it is using mutual TLS. So that is because since Istio 1.5 onwards, it has auto MTLS enabled, right? So even you don't do anything, you will get MTLS enabled for the connection between workloads. Right? So here, since there is a direct connection which is coming from external client, it doesn't have MTLS or even TLS enabled. Okay. So this is what we saw now. And yeah, so this is what we did, right? So you have the STS running as a pod, and order processing microservice running as a pod, and also the inventory microservice running as a pod. All the requests coming through the load balancer. In my example, there's no load balancer through HTTP request, and this communication actually the Istio makes sure this is HTTPS and protected with MTLS. That is because of the default support for auto MTLS from Istio 1.5 onwards. Next, we'll see how to enable HTTPS at the Istio Ingress gateway. Right? And after that, we'll make the MTLS strict for all the communication within the Istio deployment. So this is where we are going to worry about. We're going to enable TLS at the Istio Ingress gateway. To do that, we need to create a public-private key pair. Right, public-private key pair, and then create a secret. Since 1.5 onwards, Istio. So if you work with the previous Istio version, you would know, like, so when you provision secrets, certificate and private key secrets to an Envoy proxy, Envoy is using file mount to get the certificate. But since 1.5 onwards, it is using an SDS, a secret discovery service, to deliver these certificates to Envoy. And also, whenever you rotate certificates, you don't need to restart the Envoy. It will simply update its memory. So to do that, we need to enable the SDS service first. So you can use this command to enable SDS. Okay. So this generated this file, and I need to apply it. Okay. Now we need to generate a key pair. So I'm using Docker container, OpenSSL Docker container. Okay, now I'll use this command to generate my keys. So here you can see I'm using gateway.ecom as the CN for my certificate. So this generated the keys. If you go to gateway keys directory, you should be able to see it. So, okay. Now I need to create a secret using this, using the certificate and the key. Okay, done. So that we call ecom credentials. Okay, so now we have credentials. Next, we need to instruct the Istio Ingress Gateway to use these credentials to enforce TLS traffic for any request coming to our microservice, right? To do that, we need to use a gateway resource, right? So this is a gateway resource which instructs the Istio Ingress Gateway to use these credentials. So here we specify the credentials to facilitate TLS communication. So we use this selector here, Istio Ingress Gateway. So when the runtime sees this selector, this particular gateway resource will be attached to the Istio Ingress Gateway. So it knows how to load this configuration from this particular resource whenever traffic comes to port 443 for any host, right? So this is a lazy approach I followed here. Ideally, when you have multiple microservices, you may need to expose them to the outside world under different domains. For example, in our case, we can have sts.ecom.com and then orders.ecom.com likewise. So then you may have a different set of credentials for each microservice. So there can be one for the order processing microservice to do TLS communication, and there's another set of credentials with its own CN for the STS microservice. So you can define another server element here and define the host and define the port and also specify the credential name. But in this particular use case, I'm following a lazy approach. I just define this gateway resource for all the hosts with one set of credentials. Right? So now we have this one. So gateway resource done. Next, so that means we have enabled MTLs at the Istio Ingress Gateway. Now we need to make the MTLS communication strict for all the communications in our service mesh deployment, right? So even though auto MTLS is enabled by default, it's permissive. So that means if one microservice picks to use plain text or HTTP, you can do that. But once we specifically say you must use, it's strict to use MTLS, then you have no option. So that's what we are going to do next. To do that, we can use, so before that, we need to create a virtual service, right? A virtual service for each Kubernetes service. So here the gateway resource will tell the Ingress gateway, Istio Ingress Gateway, what credential to use and against which host names, right? But it won't pass any information corresponding to how to find the corresponding workloads, right? So that information Istio Ingress Gateway reads from this virtual service. So we need to create one virtual service for the STS and another virtual service for the order processing microservice. So here you can see any request comes to STS ecom.com, then Ingress Gateway knows it should be sent to the STS service. So STS service is the Kubernetes service which we created first time. Then any request comes to the orders.ecom.com. Looking at this resource, virtual service, Istio Ingress Gateway would know that this should go to the orders service, Kubernetes service, right? So let's create these virtual services. So virtual services are done. Then let's see how we can enforce MTLS for all the communications within the service mesh. Okay, so before that we can test the flow without enabling MTLS, without making MTLS strict. Right. So let's do the same command here. So one change is now the port is not the node port. We don't need to go to node port. So actually we should in fact make the service type of the STS and the service type of the order processing service first IP. Otherwise, people can still access that outside the without going through the Istio Ingress gateway. To do that, I have a file here. It's mod file. So here you can see I have changed this to first IP. Same for the STS. So let's delete that service. And now we'll create it. STS and also the order. Okay, now if you do a get to the services, okay, so here you can see now both order service and STS they are using cluster IP, so anybody cannot invoke this one outside the Kubernetes cluster. Now to invoke our services, we have to go to the Istio Ingress gateway. So to find its IP address, we can list out the services in the Istio system namespace. And in Istio system namespace. So here you can see the Istio Ingress gateway, right? It's a load balancer type, and its external IP is localhost because I'm running a one node cluster, and the port is 443. So let's export port 443. Now let's run this command. So here you can see I'm using HTTPS. Earlier I used HTTP. So one. I think I know the mistake. So I didn't create the gateway. I didn't create the gateway. That's why. So here I skipped this step. I created the virtual services. Before that, I didn't create this gateway. I just only talked about it. Go back. Yeah, I didn't do this one before. Now, virtual services. Okay, so now we are here. Okay, now we can try it. Should work. Yeah, so now you can see. So this is with MTLS enabled, and so we communicate with the services through HTTPS from the curl command itself. So this is a JWT you got. So earlier the issue was I didn't create the gateway resource. And so now export this as token again. Okay, and you can run this command. Here also you can see I'm using HTTPS. So it works. And if you try to send an invalid token, now still it will work, right? Because we don't do any JWT validations. We just enable MTLS. Right? Still this will work. Right? Still this will work because we didn't enforce any policies to do JWT verification. So you can run this one too. Okay, so it's also successful. Now, if you go here, you should be able to see the flow. Security. So now you can see earlier I had the curl client here. Now the traffic comes to the Istio Ingress Gateway, and this is protected, MTLS protected. This should be updated to support, should be protected with MTL as well. It will take a couple of minutes. I can run few more commands. Yeah, now you can see, right? So this is also protected, and if you do the other one, you will see this channel also protected with MTLS. Yeah, so all protected with MTLS now. Yeah. But we haven't still applied JWT verification, and also we haven't made MTLS a strict policy yet. Now to make MTLS strict, here you can use peer authentication CRD. So both peer authentication and request authentication CRDs, so these were introduced with Istio 1.5. Before that, we use a generic policy, something like that, right? You had a policy object, policy resource, which you can use to enforce MTLS and JWT authentication both in the same policy. But with new approach, you have two different CRDs, peer authentication and request authentication, which will make things much cleaner. So you can use peer authentication to enforce MTLS between workloads, and you can use request authentication to enforce JWT authentication between workloads. So here, when we say strict, then you cannot have any workload in the Istio deployment without using MTLS. With request authentication, this is a little tricky, right? So this has two parts. So one is a request authentication resource. Here you can see, so we specify JWT rules. So we say we accept a JWT only from this issuer. Should have this audience, and you need to talk to this URL to get the JWK or JSON web key to verify the signature, right? So this is something we specify. That means this is a URL we trust. Okay. The trick here is if you send a JWT with the request, you will the Istio will validate this policy, right? But if you skip sending the JWT, Istio won't do anything. It will just let the request go. To fix that issue, you also need to have an authorization policy for your service, right? After the request authentication policy, which says you must have a JWT to access this request, right? So you need to have both. So let's try to create these resources. So first, create the peer authentication one, and then let's create the request authentication. So which will create both the request authentication and the authorization policies. Okay, so now let's try to invoke our services again. So this is the old way of doing this. Now, if you try to invoke the STS, yeah, so you get the JWT. So because we don't enforce any authorization checks there. Now export this one. Now let's do a get here. So if you look at this authorization policy, yeah, it doesn't do any verification based on the action. It only verifies that you need to have a valid JWT. Right. So let's invoke this request. Okay. Now let's try to invoke the same request without JWT. It should fail. Okay. You can see access denied. Okay. If you run the other one, this should also fail if you don't send the JWT. So this passes, but if you remove the JWT here, it will fail, right? So now all the traffic in our deployment, it's protected with MTLS and also protected with JWT. And you can log into this one or look at the logs of this proxy and see how the MTLS verification and JWT verification works. So this command will enable debug level logs. Now you can do write deployment. Yeah, then SQL proxy. So now we will see debug level logs. Now if you run the same curl command, have a valid token. Now you will see logs here. This is printed by the Envoy proxy. Here you can see it validates a JWT, right? So this is the pass JWT, which carries all the information. And you can see the subject of the JWT is set as request auth principal, right? So this is the issuer slash subject from the JWT. And you can also see source principal is set as the service account associated with the certificate we used for MTLS communication. So this is coming from the Ingress gateway, right? So because if you look at this graph, you can see order processing microservices invoked from the Istio Ingress gateway. So this is protected the MTLS. So this service account is corresponding to the Istio Ingress gateway. Okay. So now, the last one, let's try to enforce more fine-grained access control policy. So we are using the same authorization policy here. So this was introduced since Istio 1.4. Before that, you used service role binding, and cluster RBAC config. So those are now deprecated and will be removed from Istio 1.6. So if you are doing any authorization checks, you need to use authorization policy resource. So here you can see this is applicable to the orders microservice, which carries the orders label. And then this restricts, you can only do a get to the orders microservice if your JWT username is Peter, who has a scope, and also you have the role user. Right? So this is JWT, and this policy will be evaluated against this JWT. Now let's enforce this policy. So it will take some time to update the environment. Let's run and see. Okay, so this should ideally pass, right? Because this is a get. Okay. So now let's do another curl with the post. This should fail. Yeah, so this fails. No, this fails anyway because I'm carrying token 2. Let's send a valid token. It passes now, but ideally should fail. Let's because it takes some time to get the system updated. Now it fails. Okay, this is because of our authorization policy. Okay, I think that's what I plan to cover. You can take any questions if you have any. You can unmute and speak up, or even type it in the Zoom chat.
Prabhat, one question so this is Istio virtual services CRD, right? Prabhat?
Yes.
So is that equivalent to, so when I try to map, so is the Istio virtual service equivalent to an Ingress Kubernetes native Ingress object and the Istio Ingress kind of the Ingress controller? Why did you create custom CRDs if that already exists in?
It's not equivalent. So this is a Istio construct. So you can have one virtual service. It can point to multiple Kubernetes services too, right? Like based on the path that you get, you can point to multiple services. So it's another level of abstraction over Kubernetes services. So if you look at the virtual service here, right? So you can define different routes, right? So one virtual service, you can have it over multiple Kubernetes services. This is your specific construct.
Okay. So, bro, Istio, does it also that authorization policies which you showed? It is very good. Yeah. So But is it also like we can, for example, have policies which says, okay, the microservices within namespace can communicate without JWT, but whereas microservices, when it communicates cross namespace, like we need to enforce JWT based authorization. That is also possible.
Yeah, so either you can do it based on IP address or based on the service account names. Yeah,
Okay.
so it has like flexible to do that, and also like how you do the mapping is also flexible. You can do like regex validations here as well. When you match a key value coming from the JWT with the value defined here.
Okay. Okay. Got it.
So if you go to Istio documentation, like if you go here, you the docs under references. So this is the authorization policy option. So you can check this out.
Okay. And Prabhat, if you want to integrate this with WSO2, basically like for JWT, whatever that kind request authentication,
Yeah,
we have to create a WSO2's JWKS URL, right? That's what we need to do.
that oh,
So that,
yes, only that. Yes,
okay.
just change the WKS URL in the configuration authorization policy. Yeah.
Got it. Thanks.
Here in the sorry request authentication resource.
So, Prabhat, Istio provides this kind of authorization policies, right? I read in some documentation that Istio integrate with this open policy agent as well, right? So
Yes,
we
yes,
can find it.
yeah.
So, so where does what kind of gap can we cover with open policy agent, or is Istio's on authorization policy itself like sufficient for majority of these cases?
It depends on the use cases. So OPA is not specific to microservices, so it's just a general purpose policy engine. It's more powerful, more flexible than what you see in the Istio like default authorization policies. You can like extend it easily. You can push policies you can define like very much flexible than what you get from Istio. So it depends on your use cases. For some use cases, you may need not to go to OPA, but when you have advanced use cases, probably you need to go to OPA. It depends on use cases. So what the way it's integrated with OPA is they have written a Mixer plugin which will talk to OPA. But once again, now Mixer is going away. So probably you need to have one more filter to work with OPA. But like if you want to use Mixer, still it's available. Moving forward, it will come as an add-on to the Istio deployment. This one, yeah.
And Prabhat, like in the Istio Ingress Gateway, can we also configure like for a particular paths or host names we want
Yes,
the
you can do it.
MPLS,
Yeah,
but for okay.
yeah. You can apply this request authentication policies to the Ingress Gateway too.
Okay.
Okay, then so we also have a Slack channel. So if you go to our meetup page, you can find an invitation to a Slack channel, IAM for developers. So we can continue the discussion there, or anything like if you have any question outside this too, we can be a discussion there. Thank you very much for joining, and we'll share the recording with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Bye.